Okay, so now we're recording. I got a couple more guests I'm going to let in. Miss Dorina, hello. Okay. Okay, and then if you guys can, everybody is muted and the video is off, or yeah, your camera is off, so that will be helpful. Okay, so now I'm going to turn my camera around and we're going to get started with the demo. So just stay with me for a second. I turn my phone around. Okay, so the subject today is doing 3D nail art with liquid and powder acrylic. So I'm going to show you how to work with the colored powders and work with glitters. But I'm also going to just review the basics for acrylic consistency and the correct ratio to work with, because we need to get that part right before we can start doing design work. So what you're going to need when it's your turn to practice, or when you want to practice, there's no hands-on in this today, but what you will need are 2 acrylic brushes. You're going to need a bigger one. I'm using the size 9 Harmony brush, Kolinsky Sable brush, and you'll also need a smaller brush for 3D work. So this is a size 4, but at 4 or smaller, there's a lot of good brushes out there that will work. Of course, you will need monomer. I have in my Dapendish Prohesion nail sculpting liquid. You always want to have the matching monomer with the powder in order to get good curing. So it's very important that you use the same brand of liquid as powder, because if you don't, it's very easy to have undercured product, and that can affect the adhesion. So I see somebody raise their hand, so you can go ahead and turn off your microphone and ask your question. Was there a question, or yeah, maybe you were just checking
Yes,
out how to raise your hand?
I'm very sorry, but we can't see very well. It's a very grainy video. It's not clear.
Okay, let me see, because it looks good on my side. The only advice I can give is to try to leave and join the meeting again. Sometimes just refreshing it helps. So if you want to try to leave the meeting and then come back, that could be better. But definitely the recording will be based on my video. So if for whatever reason the internet's not working for you right now, then we can forward you the video after. That's all the troubleshooting I can offer you about that. See. So I will wait to see if you leave and come back. Okay. I'm going to move in a little closer. Okay. So when we're working with acrylic, we need to think about mix ratio. So what is mix ratio? Mix ratio is the proportion of liquid and powder that we use to pick up a bead of acrylic. And, every company has its own measurement of ratio, but I like to think of it more like I like to train people to understand the feeling of the product when it's the right ratio, and just more based on how the bead looks than necessarily a measurement. I have to change it to something I can just know. Do you want it? Mine's working now. Okay, we have somebody in the lobby again.
We cannot hear you. You're on mute.
Thank you very much. Sorry about that. So mix ratio is the proportion of liquid to powder that we need to pick up a bead. And every brand has its own measurement. So for the Prohesion system, the measurement is 2 parts liquid to 1 part powder. So it just means that you pick up a little bit more liquid than what powder you pick up. But I think it's more important to understand how the bead looks and how it feels when it's the correct consistency, because everybody has a different size brush, and then also the temperature can affect things and the environment that you're in. So I want to show you just what the bead looks like when it's the correct consistency. So I'm going to dip my brush into the liquid. I'm going to wipe it off on one side. So now I have liquid in the other half of the brush. So I turn the brush over so that the side with the liquid is pointing towards the powder. So I'll do that again. So dip into the liquid, wipe off one side, then turn over the brush, and that's the side you will dip into the powder. And when we dip into the powder, we're looking for a bead that has approximately an orange peel consistency. So you can see it's a little bit grainy, but not so grainy that you see all the powders, but it's also not running. That's very important. And if you have this correct consistency, when you place the bead onto the nail, it will release completely from your brush, leaving nothing extra in the brush. And you can see it's doming out a little bit, but it's not running anywhere. And when it's the right consistency, we can work with it and push it around the nail and get it into place. So it's very important that you develop the technique for getting the right consistency. I would like to show you what happens when we use too much liquid and not enough powder. So to show you that, I will dip into the monomer. I will just touch my brush and I'll barely pick up any powder. And you can see we have a bead that's a little bit runnier. It's not doming out as flat. You can see, you're going to see that it runs a lot more. Can you see that? So it makes it very difficult to control the bead.
Did you peel over duration of time, like maybe 4 hours?
The other mistake, it's not as common of a mistake. Let me see, I have somebody else in the lobby. Okay. All right, I think we have let everyone in. Okay, so we can see the bead that's too wet. It's running everywhere, and it's also didn't dome out the same way as the correct bead. There's another mistake that happens, but it happens much less often, but that is too dry. So if we take the brush and we wipe out a lot of liquid and we pick up a lot of powder, can you see like all the particles aren't collecting into the liquid? So there's still a lot of powder on the outside of the bead. And then when we try to place this bead, it doesn't dome out at all. The liquid still doesn't absorb all of the powders. And that can create a bead that's very hard to control and very hard to press into place. So it's really important, the first thing first, that you get the right consistency and that you can consistently pick up the correct bead. So let me show you again the correct one. So I will just dip my brush into the liquid, turn it over so that the side with the liquid is going into the powder, pick up a bead which is an orange peel consistency.
I'm sorry, it's very blurry. It's very blurry.
So the video is good from my end. The only thing I can suggest is that you try to leave the meeting and then come back. I am also recording the meeting, and the recording will be my video quality. So you may have to just watch the video again, but try to leave the meeting and then come back. Sometimes refreshing it helps the screen get better.
Hi, Jesse. This is Marie with your new school. Yeah, it's crystal clear on my end, so you just keep on going.
And is everybody on Wi-Fi, not on like cellular, because that also will affect it too. So once we have the idea of how to pick up the correct consistency of bead, now we also need a technique to pick up the right consistency with clear products. Clear products such as Elegant Pink or Crystal Clear. Products that have fewer pigments in them are going to have one ratio. And then products which have pigments in them, such as Express White or Cover Pink, will have a slightly different ratio to get the same type of bead. So let's see how that looks. When we have powders with pigments in them, it's still going to be an orange peel consistency, but you're going to need less liquid to achieve the same consistency. So I'm going to take out more liquid from my brush, wipe it on both sides, pick up the same amount of powder. And you can see we still get an orange peel consistency, but it collects a little bit faster. But what we're looking for is that we can place the bead onto the nail and have it release from the brush with as little product left over. And you can see it's smoothing out, but it's not running anywhere. It's staying in the same place. So that's what the correct consistency looks like. It should be, you should be able to control it. And when you have the right consistency, you'll be able to take advantage of the whole working time to press the bead into place and to move it around. So that's just a few things for you to think about as far as consistency goes with acrylic for the basics of it. Because if we can't control in a big size, we for sure will not be able to control in the small size and make petals or make designs. So that will be the first thing you'll have to practice, is how to get the right ratio. Now, when we're doing design acrylic, we actually work with a lot more different consistencies than we do with your regular salon nail. So I'm going to show you now how to create a background for your 3D acrylic design. Of course, you can do your 3D on any like gel polish background, even nail polish, as long as it's dry enough. But I would like to show you how you can make a background with your colored acrylic powders so that so you can practice that too. So I'm going to show you how to do this color fade and the background with the reflection powders. So when we do backgrounds, that's when we want to use our shimmery colors or our colors that have a little bit of clear in them. When we do 3D, we want to use opaque powders. So we want to use powders that don't have glitters or shimmers in them. I usually use pastels and then I color them with other colors. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to make the flower based on, the base is going to be express white, which is just a pure fast setting white. And then I'm going to color the flower with full colored acrylic. So I'm going to use these two colors. So I'll show you how we do that. But first, I'm going to make a background for you, just so you can see how to work with the colored acrylic on a nail as the background. So when we work with acrylic as a background, we're going to actually work with a little bit wetter consistency than what I just showed you. So it's going to be more like a wash. So what I'm going to do is dip my brush into the liquid. Try to get so you can see that too. This. Okay, so I will dip into the liquid, not wipe off very much liquid from the brush, and just touch to the colored powder. And then we're going to work with this almost like a wash. So I'm going to place the bead onto the nail, move it from one side to the other, and then drag it down the whole nail. And then I just keep going on and I just add little bits more of color as I want. So I pick up a little bit more, press it from one side to the other, and then drag it down the nail. So we start, first we focus on the cuticle area. We make sure that we get a good cuticle line, and then we do the blending quickly. Now, before we do the next color, we can't immediately do the next color now because the acrylic is still very, very wet. Can you see how glossy it is right now? If I try to add my second color now, I'm just going to end up wiping away what I just put on the nail. So we just need to wait a few moments for this first color to go matte. Now, if you're doing a full set, you can go ahead and do this first color on 10 nails. And by the time you finish the 10th one, this one will be ready for the second color. But when we're doing a demo, I just have to wait a minute. So I'm going to go ahead and put the lid back on my powder so I don't knock it over. And we just wait a minute. I'm just waiting for the surface to go from super, super shiny to a little bit matter. And I have somebody in the lobby again. So let's see if I can let them back in. Okay, I think everybody's in now. Okay. So hopefully refreshing it helped those of you who are having trouble with your video. Okay, so we're just waiting. It's starting to go matte, so we can see. So now I can work with the second color. So now I'm going to do this steel gray. So the first bead I placed along the cuticle area, faded it down. The second one I'm going to place on the free edge, move it from one side to the other, and then blend it back towards the first color, the blue. So again, a little bit wetter consistency than usual because we're working with colors and I want this thin. So just touching to the powder, I place it on the free edge. I move it from one side to the other. And then immediately start brushing it back into the first color. So this is how we can create a background if you're already working on an acrylic nail. So you would make your whole nail out of clear or maybe pink and white or whatever you want for the structure. Then you would do this super thin background. And then we're going to cap this in clear because we don't want to use the colored powders to create the whole structure of the nail because there's too many pigments and it's not going to be strong enough. So we need to work with the colored products very thin, and then build the structure with clear. So I'm just going to wait for this gray to set up a little bit. So after I get the two main colors into place, then I just add little bits if I want to. I just want a little bit more of this glitter along the border. So now we can just work with tiny amounts and just correct and perfect our blending how we need to. It's always a little bit awkward to do this under the camera, so if it seems like I'm doing this slowly, that's why. Okay, so now I have my fade ready. Now I'm going to encapsulate it in clear. The reason why I use the glittery colors is because when you have clear acrylic on them and it's buffed and with a top coat, it has a lot of depth to it that we can't get with gel polish. So that is something that you can do with your acrylic powders. That's a little bit harder to get with gel polish. Okay, so now, and we don't have to wait at all. We can start capping it right away. So now I'm going to use crystal clear, and I'm going to using the correct ratio that I showed you earlier, and we're going to encapsulate this. So I'm going to cover this with a very, very thin layer of acrylic. So I dip my brush into the liquid, show you again, wipe it off on one side, turn my brush over so the side with the liquid is going to the powder, pick up the consistency that I need, and cover the nail, encapsulate it. So plus you can see it domes out, but it's not running anywhere. And I can cover my whole background. So I just press it into place, then drag it towards me, pick up another bead. These display tips are always much bigger than a real nail, so you probably will do this in one bead. But if it's a long nail, you can do it in two. It's always better to take your time with the sculpting so you don't have to spend a very long time filing. So now I'm just covering the background with clear acrylic. This helps the colored acrylic set faster, and it also protects it from filing so that I don't end up filing away the blend I just created. But as I mentioned before, you can do 3D acrylic on a gel polish background too. So if you have a gel manicure on natural nails, then you can just do the 3D acrylic immediately on top. So I'm going to set this aside so that it can dry. It needs to dry about 5 minutes before we can seal it. And while it's drying, I'm going to show you now how to create petals. Every time that we work with our brush, we need to clean it very, very well after. So I go into the liquid, and I'm not cleaning it with any acetone or I know there's brush cleaners on the market, but the best thing is just the monomer that you're using to clean the brush. So take very good care of your brush, and it will last you a long time. I've had this brush at least 10 years, and as long as you're very careful with the point, you will only have to buy it once. So, because they're not cheap. So take good care of your brush. It's important to clean it immediately after you're working, especially when you're a beginner, because you probably won't have the consistency perfect, and it's easy to have product backed up into your brush. Okay, so while I'm waiting for this background to dry, I'm going to show you the basics of making a petal with acrylic. So this is 3D acrylic design. Of course, you can create lots of different things, but the most common is to create flowers. So that's what I'm going to be showing you today. And first, we need to understand how to create a petal. So I'm going to be using Express White as the base for the flower. So I have my liquid and I have my Express White. And now I have the smaller brush, the size 4 oval design brush. So when we create a petal, every petal is going to have one sharp side and one side that's blended. So when I dip my brush into the liquid, I'm going to wipe off quite a bit of liquid, pick up a very small bead, And you see it's still the orange peel consistency. You can see it's a little bit grainy. And I place this onto the nail. I just give it a moment for the liquid and powder to collect together. You can touch it a little bit with the liquid to get that started. And then the inside of the petal, we're going to blend towards the center. So that's the first thing I do. So you see I have like a fat side and a side which is blended down. Once we have the side blended down, I clean off my brush, and with the belly of the brush, I press out and I form the shape of the petal from the outside. So now we have a side which is a little bit raised up and flat, and a side which is completely blended into the background. You can, while the acrylic is setting, you can take the side of your brush with the liquid and you can perfect the shape of the petal. So you can give it a little bit more sides if you want, smooth it out, add any kind of like natural movements to the petal that you want. And you want to keep working with the acrylic for as long as it can possibly set. So you can see we have a crisp edge and we have a blended side. We can also do petals which are overlapping. So I can do another petal right on top. So I'll pick up a bead again. I will place it right next to the first one. Let it set up a little bit. You can touch it with your brush. And then I will push this over the first one and blend it towards the center. So you can actually stack them like this. Just make sure that you do the blending first, because that's the most urgent thing that you can't do later. Once you have the blending, the part towards the center that's going to be flatter, then you can clean off your brush and you can keep working on the shape of the petal and the sides of the petal. So when you have the right ratio of liquid to powder, you should be able to work with the product for a good like minute or 2 minutes before it completely sets. And we have somebody in the lobby. Let me let them back in. Okay, I think, yes, great. Okay. Yes, Beth, you can ask your question, please.
We can't see anything you're doing. All we can see is the monomer and the acrylic. We can't see anything. And
you can't see the nail? I'm holding it over the monomer and the liquid right now.
barely, we can barely see anything. But while you've been working on nails, it's been below our screen, and we've left the meeting and come back in.
Have you pinned me to be the main thing on your screen? Or am I just a small square that's the same size as everybody else?
Where are you talking about?
So if you press on the square of my face, right now I'm holding a nail. Do you see the nail with 2 petals on it?
Well, I pushed the block on your name.
Okay.
I mean,
and then did a menu come up?
No.
Okay. Is there like a little 3 dots next to me?
Nope.
Let me see.
And not to mention, it's very, very grainy and blurry.
Well, I am recording this session, so I'll be able to send you the recording, which is on my video quality. That's based on your internet, so I can't help you with the blurriness.
I think what she's trying to explain is that you keep going out of frame when you're placing the petals on the acrylic nail. So all we can see is the monomer and the polymer.
So what about now?
No, now you're too high. You were just right. Yeah, perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. So, but if I move here, I disappear?
Yes. You're gone. You're gone. All we can see is the monomer and the acrylic.
Okay. So it must be because you don't have me pinned. So, okay, so I'll stay right here, okay? And I'll move it a little closer. But this is just the practice anyway. So now I'm going to do this on the nail. So, okay, let me just confirm before I do it on my background. So if I stay here, you guys can see the liquid, the powder, and my nail. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes? Okay, great. So I'll stay here then. All right. Okay, so now my background's dry. I'm going to seal it. So I'm just going to buff, so we have clear on top of the colored acrylic. So I'm just going to buff the surface now and cover this with a top coat so that we can do our design on top. Of course, you can use an electric file for this, or you can use a hand file. But I'm just going to buff this now just so it's smooth. Okay. And then I'm just going to use a wipe just to wipe off the dust. And then I have a no wipe top coat that I'm going to apply. So no cleanse, it just means that we don't have to clean it with a cleanser after or rubbing alcohol or anything. So it's going to dry with no sticky layer. So I'm going to cover my background with that product now. Okay, I think everybody's back is in the lobby now. Okay, so I'm going to cover my design with the no wipe top coat, and I'm going to cure it for 60 seconds. So you can see how the glitters really pop when they're under the clear acrylic. So if you have the chance to do a acrylic background, I recommend that you use some of these Mylar pieces because you can see them really well. So that's going to cure for 60 seconds. And while that's curing, I will try to show you again the petal, and I will stay in my place that everybody can see. So what we need, one crisp side and one raised up side, or one blended side. So we see the outer edge of the petal is raised up, and in the center, it's flattened down towards the middle. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to make a third bead now, a third petal. So I just dip into the liquid. I take out quite a bit of it, pick up a bead, should be like a grainy consistency, like an orange peel. And I place the bead, give it a minute to set up. You can touch it with your brush to help it kind of smooth out. And then the first motion is going to be to blend back towards the center because we have to do that right away. And then we can clean our brush again, and we can use the belly of the brush to flatten the bead out, press it from one side to the other, change the shape of it, any adjustments that we want to make it the shape that we want. And then after I get the edge going, then I clean off my brush and I work on the side, work on the shape of the petal a little bit. And then while I can, I smooth it out as much as I can and flatten it back down before it sets completely. So that's just going to be the basic shape of the petals. So after I do this, then I'm going to go back with colors and we're going to color them in. So I'll show you all of that on the nail that is ready now. So I'll move this up so when you guys are watching the recording, you can see it. Okay. So now my background's ready. So the no wipe top coat is set. It has no sticky layer. And now I'm going to just basically create a 5-petal flower using the techniques that I showed you. Let's see, Beth, your hand's up. So can you you can ask your question or just tell me if you can see better. I hope you can. There. Okay. Okay. So dip into the liquid, wipe it off on my brush, pick up a bead. It's a grainy consistency. Place the bead on the nail. Give it a moment to settle and collect. And first thing is we're going to drag it towards the center. So the first thing I need to imagine the center of the flower. So you just find a point and decide that that's going to be where your center is. So once you have the side that's blended, then you can turn your brush around and you can flatten out your petal and give it the shape that you want. And then once you have the outer edge done, you can clean off your brush again. And this is when you can detail the different sides, just to get a different shape to your petal if you want. And just keep smoothing it out. So there's one petal. Now I'm going to create a second petal that's overlapping it, just like I did in the exercise. So I dip into the liquid, pick up another bead, place it here. So it's kind of like overlapping the first one. And then I push it from one side to the other, blend it down towards the middle. Then I can clean my brush off and shape the side of the petal. So now I'm turning my brush around and I'm just flattening out the petal and pressing it. So you want to make sure that all the petals go towards one center. I'm going to try to move my camera so I can be more comfortable. Okay. Okay, so we have our first two petals. Now I'm going to do a third one right opposite of the first two. So dip into the brush, into the liquid again, pick up a small bead, a drier consistency, and place it kind of on the opposite line of the first two petals. Turn my brush around, blend it towards the center. Give it a moment to settle. And then I clean off my brush and I flatten the bead and give it shape. So I clean my brush, and with the wet brush, I can push in the sides. I can fix the shape of the petals too. So you want to try to take full advantage of the working time of your acrylic. Because if you stop pressing too soon, then it's going to round back out and you will get like not a very crisp looking flower, crisp petals. Okay, so now we have 3 petals. Now I'm just going to do 2 more. So I have a space here and I have a space here for 2 more petals. So drier consistency again. Place the bead kind of on the outer edge where you want it. Press it one side to the other, drag it towards the center. Clean your brush. I was just wait a little bit now. And then with the belly of the brush, I push the bead from one side to the other and then keep flattening it out. Okay, so now we have 4 petals. Let's see if somebody's in the lobby. Okay. Yes, okay. Okay, so now I just have 1 more petal to create. It's going to go right in this upper corner. So grainy consistency. You can see it's like orange peel. Place it. Let it settle a little bit. You can move it a little bit right now. It is going to feel a little bit different on the surface of top coat than it will on the surface of like a buffed nail. So that'll take a little bit of getting used to. But I think it's way easier to have the top coat on first than to try to do top coat around your design after. So you just have to wait a little bit longer. But eventually the acrylic will absorb into the layer of the top coat and it will stop moving. And then I just use the last moments I have to keep flattening and smoothing out the petals to make them as sharp as possible and also to make the surface smooth. Okay. So that's the base for the flower. So we have all of our petals ready now. I'm going to go ahead and put the lid on my white powder back. And now we can add color once it's dry a little bit. I have two colors here, and they are not very far from each other on the color wheel, so they're going to be very easy to blend. I'm going to start with the light lilac color, and then we're going to add intensity with the blue. So the lilac color is plutonium from the Riches collection, and the blue is oxygen from the Elements collection. So Elements collection are the primaries that don't have glitters, and the Riches collection are one of our shimmery collections. So since we're not building the whole nail, we can use shimmers and colors. So I'll start with the light lilac. And now it's going to be wetter consistency again, because I'm just going to basically wash the petals with this color. So I'm going to add a very, very light lilac tone to the petals. So this will be a little bit wetter consistency. So I just touch to the powder. Actually, way too much. So we just need very tiny amounts when we're coloring in. Even that was too much. And I always start with like the first petal I did because it's dried enough. It's dried the most of any of them. And with very liquidy consistency, we can start to add color to our petals. So I'm going to just go back around in about the same order as what I applied the petals. And I'm going to add this coloring wash to them. So I just add the color and then I blend it in into the white acrylic. Okay, so we can see the first color on there. And we do want the first color to be really light. So it's normal if it seems like it's too light right now, but we're going to add more intensity with the second color. So I just keep going around. Now the other two petals, it's in a similar way. I'm going to add this wash. So you can see it's tiny, tiny amounts that we're putting on when we're coloring in. And I just need to let that dry a little bit. And then I'm going to add more intensity with the bright blue. So we can see right now it's still really glossy, so we need to wait a little bit before we add the second color, just like with the background. So once I see it go from glossy to a little bit more matte, now it's been set long enough that I can add the next color without wiping away the first one. So again, very tiny amounts. And you can always put this down on your towel and pick up even more if you need even smaller. And I'm going to add more color to the center now. So I just apply the color where I need, clean off my brush, and then we can blend. I see another hand up. So if you want to turn off your microphone and ask your question.
I believe you're out of the frame again. Yes, now we can see.
Now you can see? Okay.
Maybe a little bit more down. Yes, perfect.
That's better? You. Okay, great. Yes. No, thank you. Thank you. Because what I see, I think I see my whole camera view, so I apologize. Okay, so all I did there was I took the slightly darker color and I'm starting to color in more towards the center of the petals. So we need to pick up a tiny amount. And with this color, we can add more color to the center of our 3D. Okay. So while that's drying, I'm just going to add a couple of leaves. You always want to try to create a composition. So you don't just want like one flower with no other accessories or no other companions. So I'm going to use Express White again and just create a couple leaves on this side, on the right side, and a couple more on the lower left. So just like before, small bead. And I will show you how this works once you have a little more experience. So once you're more comfortable, you can actually pick up 2 beads at a time and work with both of them. So I place the first bead and then the second bead, and then I immediately start working on the first one. So once you are comfortable with your consistency, you can work with 2 beads at once. And then I'll bring them back towards the center. So I have a couple leaves on the upper part, and now I'll do a couple leaves on the bottom part too. So we have a little balance. So drag them towards the center. I'm actually going to split that bead in half and make it into 2 leaves. Then just wait for them to set up a little bit. Clean off my brush. And really the only difference between the shape of a leaf and the shape of a petal is that the leaf usually has a pointier end to it. Okay. I'll let that dry a little bit. I'm going to take now little green color just to add some green color to the leaves. I have what's it called, phosphorus from the Elements collection, just to add a little green color. But I just have to let the first petals set up. Okay, so after the petal goes from shiny to more matte, we can add some color to that too, just in the same way as the first time, just with a very wet wash of the color that I used. So you can place it towards the middle of the leaf. And that just adds a little bit of color. You can do on both sides. Okay, so we add some color now. I'm just going to keep working with this until it's dry, until I make sure. And then for the center of the flower, we're going to add a little Swarovski in the middle. And I think the easiest way to do that when you have 3D acrylic is just to use a clear acrylic. So that's how I'm going to place the stone. So I have my clear powder. Yes, I have clear powder, and I'm going to use my design brush just to pick up a small amount. Or, just a very small bead, because it's just enough for the stone. So I place it right in the middle. With my wet brush, I pick up the stone and I place it in the center. And then we just need to let it set up a little bit. And then with the other side of my brush, I'm going to press it down. Press it into place. So I like to use acrylic because it dries totally matte. So you don't end up with some like little glossy border, like if you use top coat. Just move it around, it can take a little bit more acrylic and place it underneath the stone. Okay, so our design's ready now. So we don't need to put any top coat over the acrylic 3D. And I don't recommend that you do, because if you put top coat, you're going to lose any depth or dimension that you were able to get, because the top coat will fill in all of the little grains of pigment and the details that you made with your brush. So you don't need any top coat. This is not going to stain or have any problems with your customers. And it gives a nice contrast between the glossy background and the 3D flower. So I hope this was useful, and it gives you guys some things to practice, for you to practice your 3D acrylic. Let me check in the chat if there's any questions. Oh, wait. No. Let me just check. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and see some questions. Okay. Oh, thank you, everybody. I'm glad. Yes, I apologize for the, well, you know, it's the blurriness is based on your internet. So, but yes, I am recording it, and I will get the recording to your teachers quickly. So that way you guys will be able to watch it again. So I don't see any questions, and I appreciate all of the compliments that I see. Thank you very much, guys. Hopefully we can do in-person events soon. We really miss them. So now I'm going to turn my camera back around so I can say goodbye to everyone. All right. So thank you again for your attention, and thank you for the patience while we're figuring out Teams as a function. I hope you found this demo very useful. Like I said, I'm going to be saving the recording, so you guys will be able to get a copy of the recording. It's going to be a forwarded link that April and Marie will be able to forward to you. So I thank you again for your attention, and everybody have a wonderful day. Enjoy practicing, and I look forward to seeing you at another Teams event, something similar to this. So thank you, and everyone have a good day.
Thank you so much. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. My pleasure. Thank you. All right, I'm going to sign off now. Take care, everyone.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.